Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Jen from Nanity Jewelry Tutorials. I'm going to make today a really sweet adjustable ring. It's really simple but it's a really cool design. I'm going to be using some aquamarine, some blue colour and some gold beads. They're all about 2mm in size and I really think that's the biggest that you want your beads on this particular design. I'm going to make a little ring frame out of some 20 gauge wire. I've got about 6 inches here. And we're going to use about 24 inches of 26 gauge wire. So you can use whatever sort of beads you want. You can also add some little chip beads or something like that, but just make sure they're fairly small. We're going to start off by forming our ring. I'm going to use a ring mandrel. If you don't have one, just use something round in shape that you can wrap it around, like a really thick texture or something like that. This, of course, is really cool because you can actually decide what size you want your ring to be. And you want to make it about half a size bigger than what you actually want your ring to be. So I'm just going to grab my 20 gauge wire and wrap it round my ring mandrel the size that I want it to be. Just wrapping it around. This is really simple to do. Just press our wire around where we want it to be. And there we go, there's our sort of ring shape. I'm just going to trim that little end there just because it's a bit not quite flattened well enough for my design. So there we have it, there's our little, that's sort of going to go in and out of shape as we do this, but we can always reshape it round our mandrel afterwards. So I'm going to cut a length of 26 gauge wire. You don't want to start off using a really long piece because it can get really difficult to use, and it's actually really easy just to attach some new wire to your ring. So I'm just going to find, I like to start in the middle because I like to start by deciding my centerpiece. So I'm just going to wrap my 26 gauge wire around my frame. I might actually just do that here and then push along. This can get a little bit fiddly, so you just got to be patient with it. But we want to try and keep our coiled wires all as close together as we can, just so that we get a really neat finish. So I'm just going to start by wrapping my wire around my 20 gauge wire a few times. And as you're going through, just keep pushing your loops up together because we want them all to be as close as possible. Keep wrapping that around just a couple more times, and you can see what I mean about the wire sort of going out of shape. That's okay, we can put that back into shape afterwards. What we really want to know though is where our main middle section is going to stick. Okay, I might just pull those out a little bit. Okay, so now we've sort of anchored our wire onto our main frame. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a few beads on. What I might do with this particular one is put a gold bead on either side. So I'm just going to hold my bead on the top of my frame, my fingers, and then I'm just going to wrap around twice. I'll hold it there, and then I'm going to grab one of my aquamarine beads, just pop that onto my wire, and just wrap my wire around that frame twice. And what I'm going to do on this particular, with this bead, is I want to create almost like a little bezel out of the wire. So what I do is I bring my 26 gauge wire just around the base of my bead a few times. And about 5 times is a really good amount. So you can see how that's stuck really nicely on there, but we have what looks like a little bezel down the bottom. I'm just going to wrap my wire around a couple more times just to anchor that really well in place. And I'm just going to add another little gold bead on the side. Okay, So that's going to be my middle section there. And what I might do is just pop it back onto my ring mandrel, just because it has gone out of shape a bit, but I really want that section to be in the middle. So it might mean that I have to push it along a bit, and I'm going to do that now before I go too far, because otherwise that's actually going to get really stuck in place once we finish coiling our wire around, and it might not be in the middle anymore. So there we go. So now that I've got that in place where I want it to be, I'm going to really firmly stick it in place. I'll start with this end of the wire and just want to wrap that around a few times. So just coiling around my frame. I'm just going to keep pushing those loops together just so that I keep it looking as neat as possible. You can see I'm just squishing it all up along there. And when I start to run out of wire, I'm just going to trim the end of that wire off. Just make sure it's all nicely squished together, and if you've got any bits of wire sticking up, just give them a squeeze with your pliers so that they're not sharp. And I'm just going to keep going around with this length of my wire. Just keep pushing it up to where I want it to be, and then just keep coiling around. It's up to you really how many beads you add to this. You can add lots or not very many. You might just want to leave it at that, just a centered beaded section, and then just leave it like that, or you might want to add a few more. What I might do is pop another little bead on here. I'm just going to do one this time because I really want to keep that center section really looking stand out. Just going to pop another bead on there. Wrap it around twice, and I'm just going to go around the base a few times. Keep it really nice and secure in place, and also creating that really cool little bezel look on the bottom. So every now and again it's a good idea to put it back on your ring mandrel just to see how it's all fitting, because this bead might actually be going in between two fingers. You might not like that. You might want to have it all your beads at the front. But it's completely up to you. So just keep squishing those coils of wire together, and then that bit's starting to get a bit too difficult to wrap around, so I'm just going to give it a trim. Okay, so what I'll do is I might just pop that back on my ring mandrel to see how it's all looking. So assuming that my middle is there, just whack it back into shape by going around. Okay. Just keep moulding it with your fingers to make sure you're fittings are all sitting happy with where they are. Now what I might do is actually start from this end, because I want to have some beads on my bottom section of my wire. So I'm going to cut another length of 26 gauge wire. I'm just going to start coiling that round the bottom section of my wire. Okay, so I might just move all these coils to the end. I'll put a few more in. You don't want your coils to go right to the very end of your wire, because what you'll find is that it'll actually slip off. So leaving a little bit of a space, and what you can do is actually hammer that little end just to make sure that your wire's stuck there, or you can stick a bit of metal glue on there just to make sure that it's stuck really well in place. What I might do is just add one little bead down here. This is a light coloured Amazonite that I'm using, if I can pronounce it properly. So I'm just going to do the same thing in terms of just putting that on my wire, wrapping around twice, and then creating my little bezel around the bottom of my coiled wire. Just holding my bead on the top there, and then once I've gone around about 5 times, bring my wire back round and coil it around my 20 gauge wire. Okay, so that's pretty much the only techniques that I'm going to be using to create this particular design. So what I'll do is I will keep going with that, and we'll check in when I've nearly completed. See you soon. Hi everyone, so you can see that I finished off going right round my ring there. So what I've done is I've sort of repeated my design on the other side and just made sure that all my sections are coiled with some wire. To finish off, just to prevent the ends of that wire coming off, I'm just going to give a really light hammer. There we go. So I've just done that to both ends of my design. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop it back on my mandrel, just shape it round, just like so. Sort of hardens a bit as you work with it, so it does get a little bit more difficult to pop into shape. But there we go, there's our adjustable ring. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. See you next time.